Blue Beetle is finally out, and it's actually good. Not exactly anything groundbreaking, but with a recent string of superhero movies to us comic book movie fans, this feels like an oasis in the desert. Shazam 2, Black Adam, Quantumania, whether you like those films or not, I personally liked some of them. It's no question that just comic book movies don't really have the best reputation right now. And to add to that, how Secret Invasion turned out, we are in the trenches. And I'm not saying that Blue Beetle's only good because every other superhero property has been bad lately. No, the movie on its own right is actually pretty good. It's just sweet as a comic book movie fan to have a good one after a string of whatever that was.
Watch and learn, Jaime. Whoa! Whatever you can imagine, I can create.
Yeah, that's more like it.
Blue Beetle was fun, charming, it felt like a really classic, traditional origin story, which isn't a bad thing. I like that about the movie, and it added to its charm. Now, I'm going to talk more about the content of the movie itself later in the video, but for now, I'm just going to vent on how unfortunately situated this movie is, and how Warner Brothers itself feels like it's not doing much to help the movie. And I'm gonna start with the marketing. There's very little marketing being done for this movie. You would think that it's not a big budget superhero blockbuster with the way Warner Brothers has been marketing the film. Barbie had a giant rollout that came with it, so it's so jarring that this movie isn't getting the push it needs. Granted, Barbie did also have Mattel, who probably partially funded the ad campaign for that movie, but I mean, this is a DC superhero film. Fans on Twitter themselves were noticing how absent and lacking the marketing was for this movie that they ended up making a lot of fan-made marketing materials to try and promote the film themselves, and it was only after the fans made some noise that the Blue Beetle Twitter account became active again. And where are the character posters, too? There's a lot of emphasis on family, Jaime's family in this film, so there are a lot of supporting characters, and they're all actually interesting, and they get to shine in the movie, but where are the character posters? With how this is turning out, with the marketing push that this film isn't getting, it really feels like Warner Brothers has very little faith in this movie, which is a shame because again, it's actually a very good and very charming film. They would pour a lot of money trying to make a hit out of a CGI mess starring Ezra Miller, with all the crap that they've done, and yet abandon pushing this fun family film with a Latino lead. Although I do think that it is possible that the box office reception to The Flash also discouraged Warner Brothers from continuing to invest in these DC films. It's just a shame. Aquaman is also supposedly coming out this year, and yet the marketing on that's been absent too. They could do a last minute push, but who knows, they could probably also move it to next year. And I know there's an actors strike going on right now, so we can't really have the actors going out and doing interviews to promote this film. That's understandable. So given that situation and knowing that you don't have actors as a studio, that should have been an opportunity to double down on all the other marketing materials like ads and trailers and, you know, posts on social media. But nope, the movie really doesn't deserve this kind of treatment.
Watch out, watch out!
So-called superhero fatigue. With a recent string of superhero flops and not so good superhero films, I think it's safe to say that audiences are wary of getting into comic book movie adaptations right now. I know I call this superhero fatigue, but I don't really think it's the superheroes themselves that the audiences are sick of. I just think it's the quality of the storytelling that has been associated with superhero movies that the audiences are tired of. Barbenheimer showed that audiences are not just willing, but also very eager to go out and support great films in theaters. The reputation, again, of comic book film adaptations just hasn't been good recently. And I think Marvel's Disney Plus shows, as much as I adore those shows too, really contributed a lot to damaging the reputation of superhero films in general. They didn't really have a great reputation in the first place, but now it's even worse. At least back then they were seen as fun, and now they're just seen as messy CGI fests. And add to that actual superhero films themselves like Love and Thunder, Quantumania, and Black Adam having divisive and questionable reception from the audiences, then this is what you got. The general public just doesn't feel like caring anymore. And it's so sad because, I mean, look at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, that had a great story, it was a great film. If it was released in like 2018, 2019, 2016, that film probably would have made over $1 billion. Now it just was like barely even 900, not even 900 I think. And I'm betting if Blue Beetle was released somewhere in 2016, 2017, this movie would have been a hit. Also, as much as I enjoy the shared universes, I know for a fact that general audiences, like the public, the ones who aren't chronically online, normal, everyday people, I know they actually have a lot of trouble following who's who now and what's what in these movies, both in the MCU and the DCEU, or DCU. There's also the representation and diversity. I think representation and diversity is a good thing. I myself am a diverse person. And I think this movie representing a Latino audience is great, and I think we should have more of that. It's just that because there's representation and diversity in this movie for the Latino community, it has attracted the attention of that crowd. You know, that crowd. The crowd that hates representation and diversity. The crowd that hates wokeness. I mean, I think it's horrible that any movie in general representing people who aren't white or straight would probably get this kind of bad attention from that crowd. And I think that's a shame. But yeah, it's really horrible, and this movie doesn't deserve this kind of bad faith criticism. You know, people review bombing it just because it has a Latino lead and a Latino family as like the main characters of the movie, which is just, why would you? Who has the energy and the time to be review bombing and hating on movies for having diversity and representation? It's the same type of people that were review bombing Captain Marvel for having Brie Larson. Why?
You are a superhero, cabrón.
There's also the Spider-Man copycat accusations. From this part onwards has spoilers now. Oh, there are a lot of people on the internet comparing this movie to the first Raimi Spider-Man film, and I agree, I was reminded of that too. But it's probably just because of the classic origin story tone, that feeling. And, you know, probably also just because Peter Parker and Jaime are kind of similar in that they're both working class young adults with like school. I mean, Jaime just graduated from school and Peter Parker is still in high school and college now, but like, you know, with school associated to them. Yeah, they are kind of similar, but besides those facts and traits that I mentioned, they're young adult men who have good hearts and get a superpower. I mean, there's also Jaime's father who got Uncle Ben, but that's not specific to Spider-Man. Almost every superhero movie kind of does that. Spider-Man's just the most famous example. That's why you know what I mean when I say Jaime's father was Uncle Ben. But again, so many superhero movies kill off the hero's loved one to motivate the hero. So it's fine. Wonder Woman did it, Black Adam did it, even Far From Home did it. They Uncle Ben Aunt May. That was a long way of defending this movie from the copying Spider-Man accusations, but yeah, it doesn't copy Raimi's Spider-Man. They just have that similar origin story classic feeling. Calm down.
I'm on my way.
Now let's talk about the movie itself. Again, it's really horrible that all of these things are happening to the movie, because I did enjoy it, and I think a lot of people who saw it also enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun superhero film. CGI was definitely better than the Flash's, and the story was fine too. Fights were fun. I thought Blue Beetle's powers translated really well for live action, and I really liked Xolo Maridueña as Jaime. I think he's perfectly cast for the role and incredibly charming, and I really hope he sticks around James Gunn's universe. That said, I do have some problems with Jaime's characterization in the film. His motivation in the beginning of the movie revolves around wanting to help his family out of financial insecurity. This is what drives him to go to Cord Industries. He wanted to get a job, and that's good. That's not a bad characterization. That's not a bad character motivation. It's just that once he gets Blue Beetle's powers, his motivations immediately change into, I need to get this scarab thing, alien thing off of me. Which is understandable. If he were a real human being, of course he would immediately go and do whatever it takes to remove that alien thing off of him. But he's not a real human being. He's a character in a movie, and it's just not engaging to watch that be his motivation, because for a significant part of the film, that's like our goal. That's our whole goal for a significant part of the film, non-stop. Once he has his powers, once he has the Blue Beetle scarab on him, the whole movie for like a long period of time just becomes about him trying to get that off. I mean, it's still fun, but it's just not that fun or not that engaging to root for as an audience member. Because now you have your main character who spends a significant amount of the film just wanting to get rid of his powers and wanting to not be the Blue Beetle. And it really isn't that engaging to watch, because you're, as an audience member, you're not sitting in the theaters thinking, yes, Jaime, go get that scarab off of you, King. It's not like you're not watching him, supporting him, and rooting for him to get that scarab off, because that's not the point of him being Blue Beetle, because that's just not why we watch these films. We don't watch Wonder Woman to root for her giving up being Wonder Woman. And while having a hero want to get rid of their powers is fine and cool, and that's not a bad type of a motivation. I mean, remember that Monsters vs. Aliens movie? Animated one? Reese Witherspoon was Ginormica, a normal woman who got hit by a comet and got turned into a giant woman. She wanted to get rid of her powers for the most of the movie, actually. She spends most of the movie wanting to get rid of her powers. And that was fine, because here and there, in between those moments in the film, we get to root for her saving people too. It's not like the only thing she does in the whole film is try to get rid of her powers. She's saving people. She saves the Golden Gate Bridge from collapsing. I don't actually know if that's the Golden Gate Bridge. I don't live there, and it's been a while since I saw that movie. But what I'm trying to say is, she has other goals in between her giant goal of trying to get rid of her powers. She has other goals here and there in between that allows us to root for her, that's exciting and engaging. She's saving people. In Blue Beetle, he gets the Scarab's powers, goes back to Cord Industries to look for a way to get rid of his powers, fights Carapax, gets away, then goes to a mansion, again, to find a way to get rid of the Scarab. It's just there's a long stretch in the movie where that's all we're trying to do. Get the Scarab off of Jaime. And I don't want that. I want the Scarab on Jaime.
I can create.
I mean, if they put a scene in the middle there where he's fighting to actually save people or something, that could have been cool. We could have been rooting for him saving people. I mean, there's a fight with Carapax, but really he's just fighting Carapax so he could get away and resume his search for how to get rid of his powers. Why do I, as the audience member, want him to win this fight? Oh, just so he could go ahead and continue finding a way to get rid of his powers? Again, that's not very engaging. But still, again, it doesn't ruin the film. It was still fun. I mean, the characters and their personalities, it really brought a lot to this film. I just wish that whole stretch of, I don't want these powers, wasn't executed in that way. When Jaime's family gets threatened, that was great. We got to root for him to save his family. And then his father dying too, that was also actually made me really emotional. This is another nitpick when Jaime's father died and Jaime was crying. It's a whole dramatic scene, right? Because, like, the father just died. And we love the father. It's actually really great. Again, Jaime's whole family is very interesting and great to watch on screen. So the father dying, it's a big sad thing. But while we're sad, we get this shot of Jaime crying and he's being dragged away by Carapax. And I couldn't help but laugh at the shot because, like, this is the frame. This is how they framed it. Jaime's crying, Carapax is dragging Jaime away, his father's dead in the background. And why would they frame it like that? I couldn't help but laugh. I was sad. But then I was like, what? What is this? But nitpicks aside, again, nitpicks aside, overall, I really liked the film. I didn't like how much Jaime dominated the second season of Young Justice. I wasn't such a huge fan of him there because I wasn't watching Young Justice to watch Blue Beetle, and it felt that way. But I was excited to watch this movie because it was like seeing an old acquaintance. Like, oh, it's Jaime. I saw Young Justice back in high school, and I've graduated college now, so like having a Blue Beetle movie was like, oh, I'm gonna watch that. I know him. I really liked Jaime in this film, and Xolo is really charming and he gives a brilliant performance. I hope moving forward we get more of him as Blue Beetle and he survives the soft reboot. I loved his family too. That could have been easily cheesy and boring, but Jaime's family was very interesting and engaging to watch, and they make for pretty good supporting characters in this film, and I'm glad they were here. Especially the grandmother, she was the breakout star in this film. And maybe it isn't likely, but I really would still love to see more of these people. More of Blue Beetle. It's not over yet. Elemental had a slow start too, but it eventually made a profit in the box office. Things could still turn around for Blue Beetle. And if it doesn't, I'm still gonna hope that it becomes a hit on streaming. That's all. I'm out.